Hey guys, welcome to the stream. It's Friday night. I hope you've all got yourself something nice to eat or drink, whether that be a coffee. Just realised I've not got coffee, but never mind. So, let's discuss something that probably a lot of the newer people here haven't seen, and hopefully Mike is in the house. We can show you a couple of things. Now, one of the things that you can do to help your designer is allow them to put stuff in your map, right? And kind of more importantly, allow them to put stuff in your map where you know that it's all set up properly. Okay, so with that in mind, if we were to look in interactable items, right, and we wanted to... Hi Mike, how you doing, bud? Right, so say for example I wanted to add food. Well, I can drag a food in, okay, but the problem is, right, that I just dragged it in, and I believe it's this one here, right? Now, you'll see that it's not set up at all, right? So there's no mesh, no image, no name, no interactable row, no nothing, right? So for a designer, that's kind of a crap thing, right? Because they want to just drop this item in, right? And it for it be set up for them. Okay, they just want to basically click on a piece of food, right? So this is where editor widgets come in. Now we're going to take a look at a couple of the ways I've used them, and one of them, let's say, is an exporter, right, which you have maybe seen if you've been watching recently. Okay, and once it loads up we can take a look. So this is the one for output and skeletal meshes, and all it does is, we don't need to run the program. I'll show you how it runs in a minute. We just click on the button, read a file, get the actors, static mesh, output them, get all the values, output to a text file, and write it. Okay, very simple use of, and straightforward. Okay, now the way you run them is actually you right click on it and say run editor utility, and it will give you the buttons, etc. Okay, now the downside is you can't debug the code per se. You can't break into the code per se. You can debug print, but it prints it to the output, it doesn't print it to the screen. Okay, but so that was an importer. We can also, that was an out, that exported, right? And what we can look at is an import, right? And that is just basically the opposite, right? It reads a file, basically takes a file, splits it up, splits it again, gets the individual values, creates transform, gets the name, and that's basically it. Because these are point lights, we know we're creating a point light, so we don't need anything else, right? Fairly simple. again, if we want to run it, just right click, run weather widget. You can see that. You can have all of these open by just dragging them onto your thing. So you can have your content browser, your interactables. Now we're going to have a look at the interactable in a minute because that's the interesting one we want to look at, right? So what we've got here is an interactable one, right? And what this does is I wrote this so that it helped out my designer. So he could just basically select an item and drop it into the map. And it's all set up for him, right? So let's do the same thing again. This time we're going to select food. We can select whatever food we want. Select that. We can say create interactable, mesh only, or a more info interactable. So if we say create an interactable, there it's there. Right? And if we come in here, you can see that it is all set up. Right? Got deer meat, SM meat, all the images are set up, description set up, weight, use text, everything else. We can use, inspect, pick up. Okay? We can then select something else. We can select, let's say, a weapon. Do that. Mesh only. And there we go. Right, if this blooming rain would get out of the way. Okay. So this isn't an interactable, it's just a plain mesh. Right, and I've set quite a few of these up. So you can have drinks. Again, we can select that. We can move, we can get the yellow, the red dot, right, where we're pointing and create interactable. Right? And there we go, we've got our glass, it's all set up for us, ready to go. So this makes it easy for the designer to set up items in your world, so that they don't need to know what mesh it is, what image it is, all this stuff. It all gets automatically set up for them, right? And then we can press play. Right, and there is our item, and it's now interactable. As you see, we've got our big swordy thing, and it's not interactable, just a mesh. We can go over to our drink. We've got our drink, and it's interactable, and that saves a lot of time for our designer. Now, the thing about these is that you need to put the forethought into them, what you're going to need. Hi, Sub-Zorox. So the main thing about these, hi Sub-Zorox, is that you need to put thought into what these are going to be, right? But these widgets give you more access to like file paths and all the sort of subsystems and all the rest of it. But you can create something like that. Now let's have a look at this because it is quite complicated, right? But if you spend the time, they can be quite powerful. Okay, just created like a standard widget, but you'll notice that I've got basically switching on all types of things, so it creates the correct blueprint. Animals, ladders, fires, doors, blah de blah, right? And there is code up here a bit and another little bit, and that's where it's creating each widget for each individual thing. These are all coming from data tables, right? So all our widgets are coming from data tables in our editor helper, right? This DT item helper, right? So you'll see these things here. Not necessarily using a lot of these. I'm just using these to basically get row names, right? There should be you've got type defaults, and this is whether they could use pickup. This is for the base class, right? Whether or not things are usable, pickupable, interactable, just more info, or needs resources. Okay. So something to bear in mind, something for you guys to learn about. Again, not quite as easy to debug, etc., but they are quite powerful, and I use them when they're appropriate, basically. But as I said, you need to think about this first, okay? The possible uses. For example, you might create scenery or whatever, right, in blocks, and you might want to set up things like I did with the food, right, where you want some base default set up when you bring it in, and you could use an editor widget for that to build up your map with different items, whether it be interactable or not, or just scenery or whatever. You can do all that. But yeah, hopefully that has given you a little bit of oversight into editor widgets. I know I kind of skimped on it, but I just wanted to give you an example of something a bit more than just import export, right, where it actually becomes a tool for somebody else, right? Yeah, kinda. Well, you see, the thing is, Mike, if you any kind of job in programming these days, you can guarantee there's something to do with a database in the back end, you know. Just think of it, you know, airline tickets database, you know, car mechanics, you know, like your service history and your service, when you're due your service, that'll be in a database, right? Supermarket, warehouse and stock database, right? Everything is database, right? And they're basically synonymous now with anything you do. So we can use these in a very similar way, right, in Unreal Engine to store values for what we want. For example, monsters, which I did tutorials on a couple of times, weapon drops, equipment drops, you know, monster spawner, anything you can think of, right, is basically coming from a data table. Now, it doesn't all need to be static. Well, from a database, it's coming out as static data, right? But you can always amend it on the way in, right? When you're reading the tables, whatever, right, you can always like make it a range, right? So say for example you say monster hit points is 10, right? You can say, right, okay, when I begin play that and set it for that monster, I basically do 10% above, 10% below, then pick a number between those values, right? You can set a switch in the database is boss, right? And if it is the boss, you can multiply the damage by 10 and then make it bigger. You know, you can set a relative scale, right? But it's still the same monster, it just does more damage, has more hit points, and is a bigger monster, right? And make it run faster, right? And you can just set these all up, right? When you do the begin play, you can read the core values, then just basically act on the core values, right? As I said, you could even make it change colour depending on the database value, right? You can store a colour in there, right? And then just basically blend the current materials of the monster with that colour, right? It's really up to you and your imagination on how you use the data tables. Now remember, data tables are based on a struct, right? And don't forget that you can have a struct within a struct within a struct. Okay? And one of the restrictions of Unreal Engine is you can't have a multi-dimensional array, right? Now, if you don't know what a multi-dimensional array is, then think of it as an Excel spreadsheet, right? Where you've got an X value and a Y value, right? Well, Unreal Engine only gives you an array in one dimension, okay? But if you create a structure with an X and a Y and some other value, then abracadabra, you've just created a multi-dimensional array solution, okay? So, as I said, do not think for 1 second that it's just storing flat data and that's all it does. You can mix and match various things. What you could even do is your monster, you know, it could be a boss, right? So you've got a switch in the structure that says is boss, right? So if it's boss, then you multiply the hit points by some number, you multiply the speed by some number, you multiply the size by some number, you multiply blah blah blah, and then you give it a different AI controller, which means that it's going to have a completely different behavior to a standard monster. Okay? You could even take it so far as to give it a different animation blueprint, right? It's up to you how far you want to push it, okay? Now, actually, I'll tell you what, right? Since we're doing a bit of a tutorial and showing you some, I'm going to show you an example, okay? Of extensive uses of data tables. Okay, I'm going to show you my previous game on Steam, which is FTD 2.5, right? And this, you will see data tables everywhere. Everything is data tables. Okay? So let's have a little look at this. Hopefully, even if it does go into shaders a bit, it's probably not going to be too bad. Plus, we can probably just ignore it and just have a look at data tables. Right? So this is a tower defense game. We have, I think, about 7 different towers. We have 7 different towers. We have 3 different levels to each tower. We have about 15 or 16 different monster types. We have about 10 to 12 different game types. And these are all controlled by data tables, right? So when you're upgrading a tower, it does it by looking at the data table. If it's spawning stuff in a wave, guess what? It does it from a data table. If you're selecting a level, guess what? It does it from a data table. So let's have a look to see if I can actually remember. Oh, look at that. It's got a data tables thing, right? So we've got a leaderboard. Guess what? It's a data table. And that is for the online stuff. So I can't really show that one. We have monsters. We've got 18 different monster types. We've got basic info, the classes, the monster difficulty, number of spawn when they spawn in groups, and whether they can do a shield or not. Okay, we've got a game event one, and basically what that does is it checks every second to see if there's an event has happened, and this is for tutorials and stuff, so it will bring up messages depending on the time played, and if it's a story, if it's a tutorial, the event level, what type of event it is. It can be an event message or it can be an event sound, right? So we've got all of these things here. We've got the actual events, we've got event messages with actual text, how long they stay up, the size of them, X and Y, the position on screen, the event time, the row name. Then we've got sound events, so you can play a sound. Didn't use that, but you could basically have a big dong, you know, when time runs out or blah blah blah, and you can set these up for different levels and stuff. So you could have messages or sounds or whatever you want, any type of message or event, right? Next thing we've got, let's see, towers. Let's see what we've got in here. We've got all our towers, so these are all the different towers, right? And that's a tower bases. That doesn't give us our, where's the data, other data tables? Alright, let's see. There's waves as well, and there's the actual tower databases, data tables. Right, which I don't know where they are. So long since I looked at this, to be honest. Right, but they will be here somewhere. Could they be in HUD? Possibly. If we're doing a construct, might be in here. Right, so this is definitely going to be looking at a data table, right? I can tell you that right now. Data table towers, Right, there you go. Told you. Oh, look at that, we've got a lot more data tables there. This is localization, right? So we've got achievements, right? And this is in Steam. These are Steam keys, right? Now, this is something that I read only once, and then I convert it to a variable that's saved, so that we get these names and then we basically forget about them. And then as we complete them, we set these, right? And that's how that works. We've got game modes, right? So that you've got mode settings, right? And this is an array of different settings within the game. So is it unlimited waves? Is it tougher mobs? If it's set money, if it's a set money amount. So basically I can pick from all of these variables and set up a new game type where I could have speedier mobs and I could have no gun towers, and I would just add another one and that would then become available, right? And then you've got the mode settings, which is these things here, and then the description, etc. Then we've got languages, which is used to do the languages in the menu. Again, data tables again. We've got levels. These are all the different levels. We've got the starting cache, the number of cores, the image of the level, the game mode, the size of the level for the camera to set as bounds, the background music, except I think that's actually not used. I think it just randomizes that. Right, the toughness multiplier, level difficulty, number of waves, the soul power enabled. Right, so for the first 3 levels, soul power is not even available. Right, you can see the values here, trying it out, 150, the level bounds, background music, you can see from here it gives us 3 different ones, and it's just going to pick a random one for there, right? Then we've got towers, and we've got cannon 1 to 3, crossbow 1 to 3, crystal 1 to 3, blah 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 blah. Then we get which level it is, the cost, the sell value, base damage, target and range, fire and range, fire and rate, if you can upgrade it. So obviously 1 and 2 you can, and the third one you can't because that's the highest level, right? Then upgrade row name, and that just basically references the next one. Then the actual upgrade class, the campaign level availability, so it's when that particular tower becomes available, how much it costs per like 5 seconds or whatever it is to upkeep it. If the aim height is active, so that means that whether or not it pivots on the X, right? And that's whether or not it can actually pivot on the Y, right? Because obviously, like plasma, what's it called again? What's that guy's name? The physicist. God, I forgot his name. Oh God, anybody in the chat, what's the name of the famous physicist blokey from Eastern Europe? Oh my God, I forgot his name. In fact, it should be here. Let's see. Tesla, right? Tesla Tower, right? A Tesla Tower obviously doesn't need to rotate, right? And a crystal doesn't need to, and the hammer doesn't, right? You can see here we've got the pictures, the tower name, tower type, and notes, right? So for example, I don't know if this is going to run. We'll try it. If it's going to Yeah, it is. Right, so we've got options. I'm pretty sure these all come from gameplay. You can show tutorial messages, blah 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 blah. Right, go to back to main menu. I don't know how you select, I need to remember. Right, this wiki here, this was using data table for like these, right? So that's pulling all the stuff out of data tables. Okay. If I press play, yeah, you see, we can select the type of game we want. We want tough campaign, sprinters, curse soul, single soul, having it all, no soul power, marathon. These are all controlled by data tables. All these things are coming from data tables. So if you complete like the first, actually, if we go back, you can see that we can actually select these different types because we're on level 6. Once you actually do a level, you can unlock its different game modes. So level 1 has only got campaign, right? Level 2 has got campaign, tough campaign, strategies, single soul, right? And then all of these relate in a data table to the leaderboards, right? Which are actually keys to a external website that stores the data, that actually stores them, right? Now, if I go back and I go to leaderboards, these are actually stored on the web, right? These aren't anywhere in my system, right? Don't know why they're not, right? So you can see, and then you can basically go to level, let's say 2, right? And there's different, like this is the campaign, this is the tough campaign, this is strategies, this is single soul. So there's one like soul to be picked up, and you can see here we've got campaign. No many people have played tough campaign. Got a couple there. Quite a few have played having it all. Right? So as you can see, a lot of data table stuff going on there, right? Towers, tower picks, levels, language, game modes, achievements. Then you've got events, event sounds, game events, leaderboard info, monsters, just everything really. And that's not even the monster waves, right? Let's have a look in there. Mobs, right? Let's type waves and hit content. Type wave. Right, here we go. These are the waves that store how many monsters are going to come out, when they come, which level they are, if they're part of a certain wave of monsters, and you'll see this is a lot of data. right? It's only actually up to about 1,200 of one, right? There's another one which is a half marathon. Right, now the interesting thing about these ones is that these aren't used alone. Like marathon 1 is basically it repeats. So basically once it finishes on the last one, it basically starts repeating again. Right, and basically what this does is select random monsters at this point. So this one works a bit slightly differently, but there's basically 93 spawns that are redone all the time, right? So it's basically an infinite game, right? But you can see another 3 different tables, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's even more stuff. Let me know if you guys want to see this, me actually play it. Right. Then we've got our super duper camera jumping around to different, to different locations, so that you see a different nice location each time you press a button. Right. All that stuff. Yeah, so there you go. So there is my extensive use of what do you call it? Data tables. As I said, I don't use them just as sort of, let's say, flat data. I will probably always do a little bit of min-maxing, tweaking things here and there, tweaking a run speed to give a min-max, tweaking a walk speed min-max, tweaking this, tweaking that, tweaking the other, so that it doesn't ever appear that the monsters are coming out of data table. It'll appear that each monster actually ends up being unique in its own way. Now another one, we can have a look at that, I suppose. And this is where I learned a lot, right, is this. Okay, this might give us a problem with shaders, but we'll take a look anyway and try it out. Right, but this uses a lot of min-maxing, and this is like items, right, and it creates items. Okay, now this is going to be quite funny to you, because probably they don't, well, probably they do actually. Who out there has played Diablo or similar? Let me know in the chat. Who's played Diablo or Torchlight or Path of Exile or something ARPG type thing? And my question is, or the thing is, see how you get the weapon names, right? Like the unique weapon names, okay? Well, I've got a similar system, and guess what? Yeah, It's all based on data tables, right? And I'll show you that for a laugh. Right, and again, this is a dungeon crawler, and it as well uses quite a lot of data tables, you know, for spells, for weapons, for names of weapons, for God knows what else, monsters, all sorts, right? So let's have a wee look in a minute. As I said, it doesn't really matter about the shaders. If it has to do shaders, we'll just look at the topic in hand. Right. Once this loads, right, I'll tell you what, while this loads up, I'm going to go and grab a cigarette so as not to waste time waiting on this and then going for a cigarette. So I shall be back in a minute. I'll leave it loading. If you're enjoying the stream, hit like and subscribe. I'll be back in a minute. Ciggy time, guys. I can't, lack a mark. No, I don't. There's nothing that I can't do with data tables, right? Basically. Here we have another folder with data tables. And these are the armor slots and stuff. And these are basically resists and stuff like that. Character background stats. And these are like the basics where you build it from. Right? Character main stats. These are actual characters in the game that you can select, and this gives you the basic stats of them, right? So these are all coming from the data table. So when you're selecting a character, it's just basically pulling the data from your data table. You can add points and take away points, but these are the starting points, right? Equipment list. You've got weapons, armor, more weapons, more armor, helmets, scythes, hammers, broadswords. Then the item long name, image, class, index, the weight, equipment slot. So that's where stuff goes. Right hand, head, left hand, chest. So these are all done automatically. When you click on these, it puts them into the right slot for you and basically splits it out. Then we've got a substruct, which breaks down into different other things. You can see here we've got a substruct, and that's whether or not it's a weapon, an armor, key or torch. And we've got spell images. Nothing to get excited about, just a list of images. We've got a spell list with some of the spells. So you can have description, the VFX, the SFX, then the spell type, whether it's self only, monster only, from player to monster, none. And that basically affects the behaviour of that spell depending on the spell type, the particle duration, the stat that it affects, the damage if it's a damage spell, the base spell damage, spell cast, whether it's casted by a priest or a wizard, the level required, base mana, gives XP, blah blah blah. If it's damage over time, and if it's got a damage duration. So that's all the spells. We have the weapon list, and this is just like a subset with the attack FX, hit FX, blah blah blah. And this is the one I was talking about, the weapon names, right? So this is basically the first part, right? Now this is added on to the name of the weapon, right? And we basically decide whether or not it has one of these or has one of these, right? So it can be just called a hammer, or it can be gigantic hammer, or it can be flashing hammer of the mystic. Right, so I generate a name depending on if it's any good or not, and either put like a prefix or a suffix, or just a suffix or just a prefix, blah de blah, right? So I can add these and mix them to all the different weapon types, and you could expand this. This is just examples to get it working, right? So I'm sure somewhere in Diablo, Path of Exile, Torchlight, there's a table like this, right? That makes up all these weird, crazy names, right? Now you could expand on this, like to have a weapon type, right? And just have certain weapon types to have certain names, or you could reduce the number of names, you know, to only include these by having a different, enumerator here where it selects all or any or blah blah blah, right? So these are some of the data tables from that. I'm guessing that we probably have some more, and probably a lot more, especially when it comes to monsters and stuff. Not saying I'll be able to find them, probably. It could be somewhere in here, or possibly not. Right, and that is keep. And I could go through every project I've got, and you're guaranteed there's data tables in it, right? That's just kind of the way it is. So this is why I try to teach structs, data tables and enumerators quite early for anybody that's getting tuition, because these are the foundations of a lot of games, right? For example, if you're writing an ARPG, you're going to need loot tables. What are loot tables? Well, guess what? Data tables. Right? For example, a RTS, right? All your buildings, they're going to have basic stats with hit points, strength, blah blah blah. Where's that data stored? You've guessed it, data table. Right? Monsters. Spawning a monster. Guess where that data comes from? Yep, data table. Okay? Well, for me, I'm pretty sure you can probably use data assets and that, but when I've looked at data assets, pretty much the same as data tables, really. Do the same job. At the end of the day, you get the same result. So, there we go on the data table front. I'm going to go and grab a quick drink of water while this loads up. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so we are back, and it's rather hot. So yeah, data tables. I use them actually rather extensively here as well. For like a good example is like recipes. Right? Not that there's many recipes, but it will give you an idea. Right? We've got a struct recipe, and our data table. Okay, and we've only got 2 entries in there, but basically what it does is it gives you the row name, the interactable main. This is like if you know SQL parlance, this is FK, right? This is interactable item FK, right? This would be your row name, would be your PK, right? FK and PK is primary key and foreign key. Okay. Requirement is basically an array of items, right? And item quantity, which is another struct, right? Time required, skill level required, and that's a data table for recipes. And all you need to do is, if you've already set up your main DT interactable main, you can basically batter values straight into this as quick as you can do it, right? And it's going to update your game as long as you've got the rest of your data tables all sorted out. Okay. So yeah, data tables, important. Learn about them. Oh yeah, I've got a recipe on that. Oh, look at that, we've got DT level names. Right? This was... okay. This... I even had the menus in Fabrica Espace working from data tables. Right? The widgets did not have any text on them. They basically pulled all the text and everything from a data table, so the data tables were controlling all the menus as well. Right, it just really depends on how far you want to go down that rabbit hole. But the loading screen, this was for 4.27, and guess what? Yeah, it worked out what needed loaded by using a data table. Right. And basically what it did was put us all in a big array and removed them as necessary, and once it got basically down to a count of 0, I knew the thing was loaded, right? It worked. So we don't complain when things work, or we try not to. As I said, the other interesting one would be Fabrica Espace, because there's a lot it's a lot of data table stuff going on as well, especially in the menus. Because I think I had a rush of blood to the head when I was doing them, and decided I was going to take it as far as I could with data tables. And then basically what ended up happening was everything in the menus was controlled by data tables. But anyway, that was a little bit off topic for an hour tonight. It's a Friday night. We'll just wait on this doing its thing. It won't be too long. Right. Looking good. So what do we want to have a look at? We've fixed the clock, kinda, even though we're not 100% on it. Let's actually put that back the way it was, because it worked better until I get the correct images pivoted properly, etc., then it looks better when it just does hours. So I'll leave the code, but I'll just remove the when it does like the seconds, or sorry, the minutes. And that's actually not where it is. It's in widgets, I believe. Right, clock. Ah, it's not that either. Right, so it's in main attributes. I believe in here. Right. There's update clock. And all we need to basically do is put that in there. And then that back in there. And that's us. Right. And remove that. And this is ready just to plug back in if we need it. But as I said, it doesn't look so good because things aren't quite straight. If you don't know what I mean by that, we can take a look at the designer and you'll see that this isn't quite straight. And if we look at the clock hand, right, and we go into the browser, and this is the second version of it, right? This was me trying to make it exactly this being the center, and this is as close as I could get it, right? And it isn't quite right. Okay, so when it actually rotates, it looks a bit off. And also, if we look at the clock face, right, if we actually, does this tell us the actual size? Let's have a look at it, right? It says 512 by 512, right? But this isn't actually the center. It's like 1 or 2 pixels off, right? So when the thing's rotating round and this is actually off slightly, this is where it's given it that weird look that it doesn't seem to be rotating properly, but that's the reason for it, right? But anyway, that's another besides the point. That's my excuse, right? That this isn't quite straight either. It is 512 by 512, but as I said, this isn't quite in the centre. And to be quite honest, I don't know how to do it, other than trial and error. Right? But anyway. So, let's take a look at what we've got. There's another couple of things we need to bring in. Right? Which is basically one of our blueprints. And I'm pretty sure It's one of these. Right. But it should be sails down. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to bring the sails down one. Right. That looks okay to me. Apparently it's the wrong way around though. My state ain't secured. Not particularly sure what that means, but okay. Drag that round. I'm really rubbish at this. Well, you keep yourself safe. It doesn't sound like a good position to be in. Right, there we go. We've got a couple of boats. Now, these are liable to immediately sink, which would be quite funny. Right, so what we'll do is we'll just press play, right? And we'll run down and see if they've sank. That'll be a bit of fun. There is every possibility that they might sink. Right. Up his stairs. Oh, I laugh all the time. But Unreal Engine is no laughing matter. Oh my god, our ships have capsized. Our ships have fallen over. Oh no. Are those actually in the blooming sea? They're not even in the sea. Well, that's a bit rubbish. We need them to be in the sea, thank you very much. We have a plan here. Right, that's a wee bit too... That was a wee bit too much. That's still a wee bit too much. This is where they kind of need the buoyancy thing, but what we should be able to do here is we should be able to say wait a minute. Right, that's a bit weird. It's got to be said. Alright, so we can't just make them. I suppose it's because it's not a static mesh. And these are all blueprint classes. I think it's quite abandoned. Right, apparently we can't have it as, well, I suppose we could go into the blueprint and tell it that we're not wanting it to move, but otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, if we basically play from here, our ships are going to capsize again, which is going to be funny, but not particularly useful. But we want a bit of funny on a Friday night, that's for sure. Oh no, ship is sank. Oh no, ship is flying. Right, this is all to do with buoyancy, right? And I haven't set the buoyancy or anything, and I've not actually ever done it, so you know what they say, sod to sod and ships. Right, now what I do want to do is I want to finish off the mountain village place thingy, basically over here. Right, we've got a couple of things, but we're going to have to load up their project to find out what position they're in. Excuse me. Right, so basically we've got a thing that goes here that we're going to have to build, right? Now, I wouldn't be in the slightest bit surprised if this is a spline. So what I'm going to do in the first instance is we're going to load it up in 4.27 and see if we can export it from there. But first I want to find out if that's actually what it is. Right? So we're going to go to this one. Right, so Right, is it open yet? No. We're taking it easy tonight. Anyway, quite abandoned. We don't necessarily get news for Thailand and Mexico, just like you probably don't get Mexican news in Thailand, right? So watching news ain't gonna do anything. So anyway, anybody up to anything interesting tonight? It's Friday night. Interesting for you guys because I'll be doing this probably. That might be the way it's supposed to be. I've got a sneaking suspicion. I've got a sneaking suspicion this is actually going to be a spline. Right, which probably means right, it's discovering assets on the other side, right? But for the most part, we're going to be loading that up. Right. Sorry, I'm working on a different screen at the moment. I'm going to have to load some different parts up. And I have no idea what one it actually is. So I'm just going to generally have to load them. And then have a look to see if it's there or not. So the idea here is to get that one done and find out if there's any others that we need to load up and find out where they go. Okay. And so it's doing some navigation stuff. Right, this is where we start. Right, and the question is it here? And the answer appears to be no. Right, this is it here, I think. Or maybe that's it there, I don't know. Right, basically we're going to have to load up some more of this map. Right, so I'll load up that. And still not there. Did I load up the right map? Apparently not. Okay, well that's going to work. Didn't load up the right map. What an idiot. Right, we'll load up these. Right. So this is where we start. Methinks. Yep. And we've not loaded it, I don't think. This is it here, definitely, right? But right. So it did load up something, but not the right thing. So we'll load these up. Apparently we've still not got anything. Oh yeah, we have. There, it's there. Right, so that's the bit there, right? And there is our thing. And I told you it was a spline. Now, I'm just wondering, can we copy this and paste it? What do you think, guys? Do you think this is going to paste? Apparently not. Now the question is, does it paste it somewhere weird? Right? So, plank. Yeah, it's not done it. Right, okay. So, don't save. We have a plan. Right, and the plan is that we're going to open it up and we're going to open the backup one in 5. Actually, you know what we could do? Right, wait a minute, we don't actually need to do that. What we could do, right, is go to maps, right, go to main that, and then if we just open this one, right, and we're not going to save that. Well, actually we should have, but anyway, because I think I've just put the boats back in. Duh. Right, now the difference with this is going to be, right, what we could actually do here is just go plank. Ah, it's not there. I wonder. Wonder if we can open this one. Yeah, it's just loading the persistent map. Right, so, okay. Well, a few questions answered there. Right. Why was the last stream 35 minutes? Last stream was 35 minutes because in the middle of it my power strip tripped out. Or at least in the middle of the first part. Right. So we want a planky spliny boy. Should have turn the camera speed up a bit, but hey ho, we'll get there. Right, so basically what we're doing here is getting plank spliney boy, wherever that is. I don't know if it's underscore spline or just spline. Apparently it's this one here. Right. And okay. And okay. Right. So we know that this is rotated. Right. And that's probably not quite right either. Actually, what we're going to probably have to do is bring it back and get values. Right, because, right, so here is the problem. These were actually on this side. Right, and this is probably a bit wider, or it goes over there a bit. That might do it, but yeah. And then basically we want the spline, select the last one, and duplicate it. And this is obviously trash. Right. So we actually want to select this spline point here. I'm guessing. Then we add and in theory, right, that's that one. right? And then we add to that. Why has it done that? That's bollocks. Right, so the only explanation that I can make for this is it actually got done from the top. Alright, why? Well, that's bollocks as well. Right, let's forget that crap. Because I have made a complete bollocks of it. Right, so I'm guessing that in actual fact, this spline was made from the top. Okay. And that is that looks weird as crap. Right, so if we select the spline here, right, we select the last spline point. Right, so in theory, right, so if that's the last one, right, we want to go to that one. Right, we want to undo that because that's utter bollocks. Right, so if that's the first, I don't get it. Right, now that's right. Okay, now if I want to do that, duplicate the spline point, right, then we should be able to do something like that, which we can. Right, and now we should be able to select that, duplicate that, then drag it out again. Right, duplicate that, drag it out, and like that. It took me a minute to get my duplicate that, grab this, drag it out there. Right? So now we want that to go there. And we actually want to select this spline point rather than the actual right. Grab that there. And we get one here. Alright. And we can click on this one. And it's going to come down there. It's going to go around there a bit. Alright. It's going to go up a bit. My colleague can muck about with this. I'm sure he'll do this better than I do. I'm just getting a general idea here. I'm guessing this was up against the wall more, right? Can literally do that. And drag that down. And on the end, drag that out a bit, drag it in a bit, and down a bit, and we kind of know that we need to drag this over a bit. And down a bit. Not that much, down a bit, into the wall a bit, I think. Maybe this whole thing was up against the wall a bit more. Right, we get the idea. Damn it. Alright. Good. Way too high, obviously. Drag it down. Probably needs to go into the wall a bit. Like so. Right. Not brilliant, but getting there. Getting there. Right. Those probably need to be down a bit onto these things here. on them. That's not too bad. We need like a spline point here. Wow, I got suddenly very good at that. Right, how's about that then? Reach this. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. That was a bit stupid. Stupid me. I wanted to do a play from here. Right, stop. Well, it's looking better. Let me just say that. I can compare it to 4.27 in the way that it looks. We've got another one to do here by the looks of things. Right. And have we got another one to do there? No. No. It looks as if we've got one to do here. So it looks as if there's a couple more to do. Right, where were we? Right, so this is it here. Right. So let's play from here. Right. Right, so we can take a look at this and see what's going on, right? We obviously need to lift this up. Right, but at least we can walk up it, which is a bit of a bonus. Now, don't ask me why it's kind of white. I would have thought it was actually not that colour. I mean, I'm not complaining, but I would have thought it would just be wooden. It does make sense that it's covered in snow. I'll say that. Right. Right, shut up. Right. So this is the first one we want to kind of bring up a bit. Then probably this one. Then this one. Yeah, that looks okay actually. I'm going to say that looks not too bad. I'm going to have to compare it. Right, but something like that, although, yeah, not too great. I don't know how these are relating to each of the different things. I'll need to take a look, but that gives it a start, right? That gives us a start. What does the interior look like when you're in the house? Well, nothing for this one, I don't think. Better idea is over here. there isn't an awful lot done with the interiors. Some of them I might end up doing what do you call it? Procedural interiors to some degree. Right, but I know if you like go in here, there's tables and chairs and stuff and stuff and stuff up here. Right, so there is some interiors kind of done out a bit. Like this has got some stuff and stuff. So yeah, there is stuff, right? And I think we'll call that for the night, right? So enjoy the rest of your Friday night, guys. I hope you have a good time. I'm gonna head off. So if you've enjoyed the stream, hit like and subscribe as usual, always helps me out. Check out the description. You guys will be sick hearing this, but it's Discord and my personal Discord plus Patreon and previous game which you saw earlier tonight. Also the Kickstarter preview, and finally the website. So I shall be back tomorrow 2 PM Central as per normal. Hope to see you then. Have a great night, guys. Bye bye for now.